at the University of Illinois, Springfield. Since 2018, he has served as house manager for the performing arts at the University of Illinois. He has worked with 4 universities and several independent nonprofit organizations specializing in arts and humanities programming, outreach, fundraising, and facility management. He was special events coordinator at the University of Wisconsin Parkside from 2004 to 2009. Assistant Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities and Director of Fine Arts Center at Eastern Illinois University from 2009 to 2016, and interim director at Emory University from 2017 to 2018. He has also worked with summer fine arts camps and served on boards of directors with national music organizations. Dwight started his position here December 27th of last year as a director of our National Music Museum. Sir, Dwight, please. Welcome.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. It is a pleasure to be here almost 7 months to the day when I arrived in Vermillion. I am a native North Dakotan. Don't hold that against me. So it was a pleasure to come back to the region. I had traveled all over the country, as Rich mentioned, for either academics or for professional pursuits. And this opportunity to be the director of the National Music Museum came forward, and I said, I want to go back to the region. This is the land of my heart. It always has been. I have some family still in North Dakota. The rest of them, abandoned ship and went elsewhere. So I was pleased to come back, and we are on the cusp of some great things at the National Music Museum. A special thank you to people like Rich Holland and Ted Munster, who were some of my initial introductions into Vermillion when I arrived. I think it was kind of an electronic handshake that I got from Ted as one of the first emails that I got at my USD account. First of all, inviting me out for a cup of coffee, and then secondly, here's a membership to the Rotary. So nothing's changed there either. So I appreciate it so much. And I know some of you in the room, Deb and Kevin and Bruce over here has worked with the National Music Museum. So I can tell you that I feel probably very unqualified to talk to you about the National Music Museum, in that most of you have many more years of experience working with this organization than I do. So we're going to take a wide sweep through some of the past history before we get on to where we're at now and where we're going. So when we get to the present and the future, hopefully we'll find some of that common ground. But if I miss something in the history of the National Music Museum, I apologize. My goal is not to hit on everything because we just don't have time to do that. But it is just sort of give you some highlights and to make sure we're sort of all on the same page about what the National Music Museum is, how we got here, and then where we're going. So I've prepared a few slides. The NMM at 50. 2023, the National Music Museum celebrates its 50th anniversary. That is as a recognized organization, as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It kind of started loosely prior to that, but that's the benchmark. July 1, 1973 is when the IRS recognized us as a 501c3. So I'm just going to give you a quick timeline as to how we got to where we are. On your left, my right, Dr. Arnie Larson, who was the founder of the National Music Museum, was hired by USD in 1966. Then we were incorporated as a 501c3 under the title as the Shrine to Music Museum in 1973. In 2002, the name was changed to National Music Museum. It's kind of a colon. It's America's Shrine to Music, National Music Museum. If you want to know the inside scoop and the full story, that's our full name. But that was changed in 2002. And then, as many of you know, in 2018, the NMM closed for an expansion and a renovation. This was important because in 50 years, the organization had not done any kind of an expansion or major renovation project. And as you know, museums evolve over time, museum practices, museum standards, the approach to exhibitions, all of those kinds of things change. And so it was really time. So in 2018, the NMM closed for expansion and renovation. So now we're going to compress this time frame into what's happened since 2018. When we closed in 2018, then the Center for Preservation and Research, which we affectionately call the CPR, was opened 2019 as a cooperative effort between the City of Vermillion, the VCDC, and the National Music Museum. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. In 2021, then, the expansion was opened. That is the Lillibridge wing, which now has our Groves Special Exhibition Gallery, the Wanzek Performance Hall, a gift shop, and then our administrative offices on the top level. Then in 2021, the NMM Goes Electric was our first exhibition in the new Groves Special Exhibition Gallery. We are now featuring in 2022 Gamelan, A Way of Life. On your table, you see a catalog for the Gamelan exhibit, some beautiful photography. If you're not familiar with the Gamelan as an ensemble, as an instrument, you need to be aware of that. One more timeline. Also, during this time frame, we closed in 2018, the CPR opened in 2019, and everything's been going on ever since. Then in 2018, they said, well, if we're going to renovate the Carnegie Library, which is now the National Music Museum, and expand, we've got to move all the instruments out. So they moved everything over to the Center for Preservation and Research. And then along that time, USD, just to make it more convenient for us, said, you know all these instruments that you have stored in various places around campus, which they've been gracious to give us space, they said, those have to go. So it's taken about 3 years to get all of the instruments and to go through them in the collection process, eventually out to the Center for Preservation and Research, where they are now stored. And then we'll begin the preparation to bring some of them back from the storage location to the museum when we reopen soon. So all of this was going on at the same time. So we're trying to build, we're trying to raise money for the exhibits, we're moving instruments all over the place. So there's awful lot of background work going on while we're trying to mount some special exhibits and we're trying to finish out the building. So this kind of brings us to where we are right now. So if you haven't, this slide doesn't show up real well here, but this is a picture of the outside of the Center for Preservation and Research at 1225 Carr Street. You probably know the building. You've probably been by it. It's right near Polaris and Runnings. If this picture were a little bit more defined, one of the things that people recognize about this building is that the lighter shade of concrete right up there at the top is a piano keyboard. So that kind of identifies us as that being a music building. There's no sign on it right now, but this was a really wonderful opportunity that our board of directors, in conjunction with the city of Vermillion and the VCDC, came up with because we didn't have storage facilities, nor was it climate controlled or security controlled and all those things that we needed. So they came up with an idea that the city built this building for us at a cost of $2 million, and we are leasing it back from the city. So we pay them every month, and eventually the building will become ours. But we didn't have that kind of money to front. So this is the Center for Preservation and Research, where the instruments are now stored. If you would like to come out this Sunday, timely as it is, this Sunday, July 24th, 12 to 4, we're opening that facility to the public we'll go through, look at how the cataloging, the collection of instruments, the storage, and the talking with some of the curators who will be on site. That's not necessarily open, but because the main museum is not open right now, we're trying to do some things to help the public understand the work that's been going on during this process. We did this one other time in, I think it was April or May, and we had about 50 people through the course of that day come through, and they would stay for about a half an hour or an hour and just really were very interested in what was going on. So we invite you out. We're going to try to schedule tours on the half hour and the hour. We'll see how that goes. It's kind of like herding cats. We go as people come in. So, but we invite you out to the Center for Preservation and Research. That's 1225 Carr Street on Sunday. The Gamelan, which I mentioned to you, is our current exhibit in the Groves Gallery. It is open through October. These are our exhibit hours, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, so the building is not open every day because the rest of the permanent exhibits are not up and installed yet. But if you're not familiar with what a gamelan is, this happens to be a Javanese gamelan set. There are also Balinese, and there's some differences between them. This is a Javanese gamelan. That's an actual picture. In the catalog are pictures of our gamelan set installed in the Groves Gallery. This is one of the collections that makes the National Music Museum very unique. Most museums do not have something like this, even if they have a music collection. This was donated to us by a family of supporters many years ago, about 1990s sometime. They thought that the National Music Museum needed a gamelan. So they fronted the money. We sent a consultant to Java and found the workshop of Ud Sapoyo and his workers, and they handmade this set of instruments. It was shipped by boat to Seattle. then by train to Minneapolis, and then by truck to Vermillion in 1999. This is the only place it's lived, and this is the only place it will live because it's ours. And it was all because there were some supporters who wanted us to have this. We have been told by people from Java, and there is a professional gamelan ensemble in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who loves to come down and perform on this instrument. And they said not only is it beautiful, but next to the Javanese gamelan in the palace in Jakarta, Indonesia, this is the best sounding gamelan they've ever heard. So it is beautiful, but it is also practical, and it is also playable. So it's also available as an educational outreach for us. In fact, last week, during the USD Music Camp, there were sessions of 2 or 3 sessions a day of students from the music camp who came over to the gamelan exhibit, and our education coordinator would walk them through, train them a bit in this non-Western style of musical instrument and sound. So these are some things that, and this is a phenomenal instrument. I do not even know the worth of it. We don't have a dollar value. The cases that you see, the wood there is teak wood, and that is very common in Indonesia. You'll see some bar instrument, some string instrument. The bars obviously are metal. All of the gold you see on the instruments, 70 different pieces, is actual gold leaf that's been hand applied to the instruments. So from a piece of craftsmanship and artistry and architecture, it ranks right up there as one of the top instruments in the world. So let's move on. I invite you to come on over. So what makes the NMM so special? Well, we have one of the largest and most prestigious collections of musical instruments in the world, bar none. We have over 15,000 instruments in our collection. Most of them are stored at the Center for Preservation and Research. They will not all come back to the museum. We can talk about that in a couple of minutes. If you would like to, you can see some of them on that website, emuseum.nmmusd.org. Not all of them are up there, but if you just have some wandering time in the afternoon and you want to hit the website, and you can see classifications of instruments, and you can get some information off of our database about them. Just out of curiosity, our oldest instrument is a Peruvian side-blown trumpet that's estimated to be from about 100 to 800 AD. And our newest instrument is in a collection of Native American instruments that we just recently purchased by contemporary Native American makers. It's a Native American rattle that was just acquired since I've been here in 2022. So Western-based, classically based instruments, Native American instruments, non-Western instruments. We're trying to cover as much of the gamut as we possibly can. And we have some new and renovated facilities, and best of all, it's made in South Dakota. So this is the place where it started, this is the place where it lives, and this is the place where it will continue to live. So let's take a look at the next 50 years, 2023 and beyond. So this is where we're at today. So the gamelan exhibit is open through October, and then as museum exhibits do, this one will be deinstalled. That space will be dark for a few months while we prepare for the opening of the next exhibit in January 23, which is officially the start of our 50th anniversary year. We are installing our 50th anniversary exhibit. It's going to be called As Good as Gold, the NMM's first 50 years. And it will feature about 30 instruments and stories from the various collections that have made the NMM. And I say this with all sincerity, the NMM is world famous. You may not know it, but in the museum world and in the musical instrument collecting world, the NMM is world famous. And so this will feature some of the collections that have made the NMM world famous. It will open, our opening date is January 20th, we think at this point, of 2023. And it will stay up through October of 2023. Then, our permanent exhibits, which have been closed for renovation and updating, our phase 1 of those, which includes all the galleries on the first floor. We have 2 floors in the building. All the galleries on the first floor are slated to reopen in summer of 23. So about this time next year, we've asked them for a July 1 opening because that's kind of our anniversary date. And they're saying, well, the soonest we might be able to get it done would be August. So we're still negotiating on all of that. So it'll be somewhere around July or August. And then phase 2, where all the galleries on the second floor, we do not yet have a time frame for that, but we're working on it. So when the new galleries open, you'll find a completely new, modern look to the galleries in the National Music Museum. The floors have been changed now. You see this lighter colored maple floor. The casework there is also maple, so everything is sort of a continuous flow. You'll see an update into the way the instruments are presented and the stories. There's a combination of two-dimensional and three-dimensional and some new interpretive material. You'll also find that the galleries are organized thematically. Instead of having, say, for example, all the brass instruments here and all the string instruments here and all the percussion instruments here, it's more about how we use instruments. Instruments as innovation, instruments in the home, instruments in concert venues, instruments in spirituality. So you might go into a gallery and see an entire collection, but they're organized around a concept or a theme. And in some cases, we have workshops that are going to be built so we can show the product. The picture at the top is our American Guitar Gallery, and the picture at the bottom is the room right next door in which we were given a complete D'Angelico workshop. If you're familiar with guitar makers, there are some big names. There's the Gibson and Martin and Fender. There's also D'Angelico, DeQuisto, Godelski. These are top guitar makers. When one of the D'Angelico workshops closed down, they donated to us the workbench, all the tools, all the varnishes and stains they used to make guitars. So we can set up a workshop so you can see all of that that's going on. All right, let's move on. So this is where we're at right now, because we always talk about numbers, and this is important. So because we've cut up our completion into two phases. Phase 1 are all the galleries on the first floor. Phase 2 are all the galleries on the second floor. Phase 1 is at a cost of about $4.5 million to complete that. Phase 2, about $3.5 million, for a total cost to finish the building at about $8 million. If you followed the state legislature over the last few months, you might know that the state legislature awarded the National Music Museum $2 million to help in this project, which was a monumental lift and almost unheard of, quite honestly. We heard this from the governor after the fact, because Scott Lawrence, who was the chair of our board, knows Governor Nome, and she pulled him aside after she signed the bill and she said, "I don't know how you did it." But they did it. They awarded $2 million. And that helped launch us then into this phase. And we agreed then to match that $2 million, of which today we've already received 1.7 toward our $2 million match. So that gives us the confidence that we can complete phase 1. And then we're doing some other fundraising that will launch us into the phase 2, which they can start at any particular time. Why didn't we do both of them together? Financial prudence. We just didn't have the money. We wanted to do what we could pay for as we go along. So this is sort of delaying things a bit. So that, in a nutshell, really is where we're at and where we're going. I wanted to leave some time for questions and answers and to see what I can help you to help you understand more about the National Music Museum. Yes, sir.
I didn't hear the answer to your question about whether you had accepted Ted's challenge to join Rotary. But assuming that you did or will, one of the neat things that could happen, and that did happen years ago, Arnie B. Larson used to be a member of this club, I believe. And he would occasionally bring an instrument that nobody ever heard of, just to show us what it was. And he claimed, and he performed here to prove that, he claimed that he could play most or many of the instruments in the museum, and he would, as I said, bring one here and then play something on it for us. So anyway, I'm assuming that you might not be able to play them all, but if you do become a member of Rotary, it would be a nice little addition if occasionally you would bring something unique and show it to us.
That's called hazing, by the way.
Is that what that is? Okay, all right. Well, first of all, you're thinking that I'm comparing to a force of nature named Arnie B. Larson. Right? Nobody can compare to Arnie or his son Andre, who was the first director of the museum. They literally were forces of nature. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for what they did. And to answer your question, it is true that Arnie could play almost everything he picked up. And the stories are across the music museum about how he would just throw something in his car one day and go somewhere and show up and start playing it, and it'd be some instrument that nobody ever heard of. I was thinking about bringing a couple of things today, but I know that our time is somewhat compressed. I had a Johnny Cash banjo picked out, and we along with collections that we have, we also get these sort of ephemera, these accessory items that collectors pick up over time. They're kind of instrument related. There were two of them that I wanted to bring, but we just didn't have time. There's a music stand with a candle holder on one side of it. Now you can sort of guess the time frame. This would be the time before incandescent lights, and somebody would need light to see their music. So there's a metal music stand with a candle holder right on the side. It's not something you see every day. And there's also a sword that we have in our collection, which looks like any other sword, but you can unscrew the top and pull it out, and the top makes into a foldable music stand. So, I mean, musicians are quirky and creative people. They'll come up with any opportunity. So I'll do that sometime. I'll bring something back. Any other questions? Yes?
This is probably a throwback question, but I used to love to go to the Friday lunch, the brown bag things. Is there going to be space for this or something similar for the community to be able to come and enjoy?
Well, yes. In fact, there is now, and we finished a series of NMM Live programs just recently, so we're still doing those concerts. If you look here under 2021, the Groves Gallery, Wanzek Performance Hall is the place. So in the new edition, there is the special exhibition Groves Gallery, and then they also built for us a performance hall, which has wonderful acoustics, especially for smaller chamber ensembles, and seats about 115 people. Yeah, so we have not yet released the season for next year. Michael's working on that now. He's got the fall pretty well lined up. So yes, once or twice a month on a Friday at noon. That's our NMM Live concert series. Right now, everything is free. When we reinstitute the full exhibits and the full exhibit hours and all that, we'll probably go back to charging per person to come into the museum. But for now, that just doesn't seem right to charge people for a museum that's half closed. So all of our concerts were free. All the exhibits right now are free. And so, yes, we will be doing that. Continue to look at the website for our programs. It's called the NMM Live Concert Series. Deb.
Not a question, just a comment about this last Saturday. When you had Family Day. I would encourage you to have more of those. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful introduction to the Music Museum for young children. And it's a great turnout. I would assume it would just get better and better. I think it's fair to say there are a lot of people that live in Vermillion that have never stepped foot in the Music Museum. And like you said, it's a world-renowned treasure. And so the more things that we can do to get people in and familiar, the better.
Yes.
It was wonderful. So thanks for doing that.
She was referring to Family Fun Day, which we had at the museum last Saturday from, was it 12 to 4? I think it was. So there's some crafts and activities for kids. Phil Baker from Sioux Falls came and performed in the afternoon on the grass out on the backside of the museum, did an afternoon performance specifically for kids. And then because the rain was good to us, it started raining right at the close of his performance, so that chased everybody back inside for the craft activities. And people hung around. We actually had to gently coax people out the door after 4 o'clock. And it was one of the busiest days we've had since I've been here. It was one of the noisiest days because there were families roaming around and playing the gamelan and doing all kinds of things. So I'll tell you, internally, we had a discussion about how many people we would plan for and how many people we thought would come. And well, it's summer, people have all kinds of other activities scheduled, families are gone, whatever. We thought maybe 30 to 50 people would show up. That would be a decent crowd. We had 140 people show up. So we were pleasantly surprised, and they ate all the cookies, unfortunately. Any other questions? Ted.
We've invited you to membership. Could you invite us as individuals to membership in the museum?
We could certainly do that.
How is the membership program going?
Well, we're not actively seeking the members right now because we don't have an open full museum to be able to share with them. So during this time, we're trying to revamp our membership process. So as we get closer to the opening of phase 1, you'll probably see some information about becoming a member. I think it's about $100 a year or $120 a year, and that gives you 2 or 3 memberships. I don't have all of those details, 2 or 3 guest cards and percentage off of the gift shop materials and things like that.
So I am a member, and so one of the perks was at Old Main, the concerts, and unless I missed them, but they have not occurred in the last 2 years. Will that pick up again?
At Old Main?
Yeah.
I don't know about those. Since we have our own performance space now in the museum, I'm not sure. Although we are going to pick up our cooperations with the music department, but because we've been somewhat closed down, it just really doesn't seem the time to do that right yet. So I anticipate we'll get back to that.
Okay.
One of the other things that you may or may not know is that because we have the museum here, which has one of the largest and most prestigious collections of instruments in the world, the USD Music Department offers a Master of Music with a specialization in the history of musical instruments. Seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, we're the only program of its kind in the world. Now, that's been on hiatus since we closed and then COVID hit and everything, but that's reigniting in fall of 23, so that's also part of the marketing effort and the collaboration between the museum and the music department. It's to sort of put some new structure to that and see where we're going with that. So, question over here?
You need more parking spaces for buses to park.
Can I give you President Gestring's phone number? Well, you might be interested to know that the buildings just beside us, the South Dakota Union building and then Julian Hall, those are undergoing some renovations, and one of them is being taken down. And part of that is because of the expansion of the medical building next door, but they're going to make that into a parking lot, at least part of that area. Now, I don't know that will solve everything. We have wanted to advocate for at least 2 spots reserved for the National Music Museum guests. So far, they have not entertained our request. But I hear you. I feel your pain on that one. Anybody else? I'll leave you with one last story if there's no other questions. When I say the museum is world famous, just before COVID hit, the museum was contacted by a museum in Cremona, Italy. If you know anything about string instruments, and the string makers go under this name of luthiers, anybody who makes string instruments, from violins to ukuleles, they're all called luthiers. Cremona is the birthplace of all the major luthiers, Antonio Stradivari, Amati, Guarneri, all these guys who are making the top instruments in the world. And they wanted to do a reunion exhibit of the top string instruments in the world in Cremona, Italy, about 2019. And they contacted the National Music Museum because they knew of our Italian string collection, which has a 1693 Stradivarius violin, a Stradivari viola, a Stradivari guitar, some Guarneris, some Amatis, and our granddaddy instrument, our Amati King cello. And it's the oldest cello known in the world. And they said, could we borrow those? It happens among museums. So we sent 2 staff members with some of our top instruments to Cremona, Italy, where it was installed at this exhibit, of which the Stradivarius violin did a special insert about that particular exhibit, about our instruments, and of which the Reunion in Cremona group did a side-by-side English and Italian translation just about the instruments from the National Music Museum who went to Cremona, Italy. Now, about the time that this was installed, guess what happened? COVID hit. So we couldn't get them back. It was only supposed to be there about a year or so. We couldn't get them back until about 2021 or close to 2022. But we now have them back here. So when I tell you that the NMM is world famous, we have people contacting us all the time who know the depth of our collection, and they say, we want to borrow an instrument for an exhibit, or we want to do an article about this instrument. And that is so fun. And the biggest question that comes up is, why Vermillion, South Dakota? And I say, why not? You know, it has to be set up somewhere. For those of you who are guitar players, the Martin Guitar Company, if you've ever looked at the home base of Martin Guitar Company, it's out in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, and that's where they set up the Martin Guitar Company. You can set up anything you want, and you can dream as big as you want. So I'm glad that people like Arnie and Andre Larson dreamed of having the museum here because it gives us something to boast about, right? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, real quick. Don, or Dan, excuse me, would you talk about the duck?
Real quick fundraiser on the duck races, right? Coming up August 7th, 5 o'clock in the park. For those of the newer members, what happens is we herd 700 little rubber duckies. They all have numbers on the bottom. They go down the slide, they herd them around the lazy rivers, and it's a race, right? You first duck through. The winner gets $125. The second place is $75. And third place is $50. You will all get to buy 10 tickets at $5 a piece, and that'll show up on your next bill down the line here or whatever. So you all get 10 tickets for free to enter, and I mean, think of it, folks, that's a mere $50, and the first prize, 120, that's, 250% increase. It doesn't get any better than that, right? So that'll be coming up, but if you would like to sell some to your friends and colleagues, here they are. These numbers will start beyond what you get assessed and the numbers that you get chosen for you. And so please see Kathy and I or whatever afterwards here if you'd like to buy a pack for your colleagues and give them a chance to win $125. That'll be your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. You did so well with that. You'll be Sergeant at Arms next week. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dave, could you come up here? Congratulations, Patrick.
We got a $50 fundraiser.
That's right. Well, thank you, everybody, and guests, I guess you'd call it a guest. You're welcome to be here. Please, our pledge.
My country is a sweet land of